we're brought up to be reactive with our health. You know, when you have a problem, then you go to the GP. But what we actually really should be brought up with is being proactive.
Joanne and Tracey, thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board. This is my first 2 people on the podcast at once, so I'm very excited.
Nice. Okay. Double trouble.
Yeah, that's it. I think double the goodness. So
we can say that too.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you both. Thanks for coming on. So to start off the podcast, I like to ask everyone, what is the sweatiest you have ever been? Sweatiest moment.
Okay. So Vietnam last year last year.
Do you mean Cebu?
No, Vietnam. Vietnam, when I went down that hole and put the thing.
Oh, yeah.
So sweaty. So if you've ever been to Vietnam and where all the tunnels were back in the war, in the Vietnam War, and they let you go down one of the holes.
Yeah.
I had sweat dripping in places I didn't even know you could sweat. Like too much information, but like down your bum crack, down your back, boob sweat. It was full on, like sweat.
Yeah.
Sweat.
Well, apart from the sauna, obviously, I think that could be my sweatiest place.
Have you ever been to Vietnam?
No, I haven't been to Vietnam. I've been to like Thailand and Bali.
Yep.
And it can get pretty warm. It's just, and Vanuatu actually, there's like a closeness there, you know, like you open the door and it just like hits you.
Yeah.
We lived in Papua New Guinea as kids as well. And I would actually, do you know what was sweatier? We had this little, I don't know if you remember it because you're a bit younger, but we had a little white car. Like
a Suzuki thing.
A little Suzuki thing. And because we're sisters, if anyone's wondering. And we would go out to this water hole in Papua New Guinea and the car would just sit there in the sun, like no air conditioning. It would sit there in the sun. And we would get back in it after we'd been swimming and it was horrendous.
Yeah, that's, and being in a hot car is super uncomfortable too.
Yeah, in Papua New Guinea.
Like you would get back in as kids and it was like, stop touching me, don't touch me, she's mom, she's touching me. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens in the sauna actually.
Yeah, I know, I'm feeling a bit, don't touch me in about 10 minutes time.
Good thing we're sisters.
So is that equal sweatiest for you both or?
Probably something that comes to mind for me is we were away at a conference in the Philippines in Cebu.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
And we spent the week there at this amazing conference and the closing party was a white party. It was on the beach. And all of a sudden this rain. So then the rain stopped and we had this beach party. And I'd we'd all got really dressed up, face full of makeup, I'd straighten my hair, and then I'd walk out. I was like my face just melted off. It was so hot. I reckon that was probably the sweatiest
that was pretty sweaty.
that I can remember ever being. And by the end of the night, like the men's shirts were just translucent. Like it was full on. It was really hot that night.
Pretty sweaty.
Did you just get to a point where you just gave up on like?
Oh, absolutely. Totally. Hair back in a band.
It was about 3 minutes after we walked out the front door.
Wiped all our face off. It was Yep.
Yeah,
but it was a good night. It was a really good night.
It was a fun night.
Nice, a sweaty one. I think all sweaty times are often fun because there's just like especially if it's in a moment like that where you're really, really formal, you just like, you get this point where you're like, oh, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to let go and have fun. And
yeah, we were all in the same boat. We were all just a dripping mess, but it was a good night.
It was a good night.
Nice. Well, we may get a little bit sweaty over the next 50 minutes or so. So if you guys just start fighting in the sauna because you're touching each other, I'll understand.
Separate us.
Yeah, that's it.
We'll call you Dad.
Yeah, that's it. I'll mediate from Melbourne. So when did you guys start to get into living an additive-free lifestyle? When did that whole journey start for you both?
Yep. So I'll take over from there. So it started back in 2013. We had we have a little girl. At the time, she was just 3 years old, and her behavior was just pretty much out of control. She was very hyperactive, couldn't sit still, couldn't concentrate, you couldn't do simple things like read her a book and it be pleasurable. It would be, oh, just sit down, listen, stop doing this. It was a nightmare. I had to stop taking her to the park because she'd just run off, and she was quite aggressive to other kids, and I guess just her whole little world was just completely what I would call out of control. And she was always sick as well. She had chronic repeated tonsillitis. She had ear infections, pneumonia. She was in and out of the emergency department with her wheeze, which is what they called it at that stage, which was asthma. And so I guess just life was really hard. I had a newborn baby as well at the time. And I guess being my first baby, I kind of just thought, everyone was just saying, oh, that's just the terrible 2s and that's just the torturous 3s and it's okay. We all go through it. But I just knew that things weren't right and that I was an early years educator as well. I worked in a kindergarten, so I knew what 3-year-olds really should be displaying and shouldn't be displaying. Right. And I knew that just things were definitely not right. And so I had her booked into a clinic to get her tested for ADHD. And her father, my husband, was ADHD and medicated on Ritalin as a child. And I was having a lot of people say to me, oh, genetics have a part to play. And, basically she is who she is and there's nothing really you can do about it. So, get the testing done and then just go from there. But really I just kept thinking to myself, there just has to be something else that I can at least try. I just always wanted to never give up and just constantly keep trying to help her in a natural, holistic way as well. And I wasn't even really natural either. I didn't know anything. I knew nothing. I just lived the standard Australian lifestyle and we just ate the standard Australian diet. We ate lots of meat and veg and fruit. But I never really looked at what I was buying or, my skincare or cleaning products or anything like that. And it wasn't until I got invited to this cooking demonstration. It was actually a Thermomix cooking demonstration. And the consultant there mentioned an additive 102 that can be linked to behavioural issues. She goes, just this passing comment, it was when she was making the custard, and she said, sometimes additive 102 can be found in custard powder, and I don't really like giving it to my kids because it can be linked to behavioural issues. It was just that little passing comment. I remember I was nursing my newborn baby at the time, and I was just so exhausted and tired that it wasn't even like I was listening, but my ears pricked up from that one-liner. And I went home that night and I started Googling additive 102, which then led me on to Googling all these other additives that could be linked to behavioural issues. And my husband was interstate for work at the time, and by the time he came home only, a week or so later, I'd said to him, hey, look, I've made this big long list of additives that can be linked to behavioural issues. And I said, look, I don't know if this has anything to do with either, but maybe it does. And he'd obviously been brought up with his own challenges, so he was willing to do anything he could do for her. And so he said, all right, well, let's just get rid of it. Let's just go to the fridge and pantry and we'll just get rid of everything that we might find and, we'll see if it can make a difference. And so we did, and it made a massive difference. And honestly, in what felt like overnight, her whole temperament changed, and she just became, over time, really overnight she calmed down, but then over time, things just kept getting better and better, and we just kept making more swaps and, looking into more things, which we'll talk about throughout the podcast, I'm sure. And that ADHD appointment that I had made, there was a 5-month wait list for that, and it was during that time when we decided to go additive free. And I remember getting that text message reminder of my appointment the day before my appointment. And I remember thinking, you know what, actually, we don't need to go to that anymore. Like we've got, in her into a place where I'm going to cancel. So that was like the best feeling in the whole world. And I get teary, and I reckon I've said this story 1,000 times. And every time I say it, I go back to those days and thinking about those emotions, and a whole life changed just by going additive free.
Yeah, that's incredible. How quickly do you think she turned around, like from having like bad symptoms to being somewhat sort of normal, I guess?
Honestly, like she used to have these tantrums that would just last for hours, and they would go on for so long until what she'd do was she would exhaust herself so much, and then she'd curl in this ball and she'd just rock back and forth, still sobbing and crying, making no sense, verbally not making any sense at all. And she'd get her hands and she'd just start scratching her face. Wow. And like we'd have to pick her up off the floor. Like I would just bear hug her and peel her fingers off her face one by one. And that all stopped. Like that stopped instantly. Like we didn't have any of that problem anymore. But what we had to work on was the habits. It was normal for her to go into a rage straight away and fly off the handle and then have no idea how to come out of it because her brain was so crazy with all these additives and just it was like murky. She just couldn't figure out which way to go and how to regulate herself. And so that kind of side of it just pretty much stopped straight away. It was like all of a sudden she could think.
Our mum tells a story. So our mum and dad go caravanning each year, and Joe's only heard me sort of say this a couple of times because mum was telling me about it, and she was saying she'd gone up. They'd driven all the, like we're in Hobart, if anyone's not sure, and Joe used to live in Queensland, and mum and dad had gone up to visit, and they went into Joe's house, and Eva was colouring in on the floor. And she had a colouring in book, and there was no colouring in within the lines. Now, most 3-year-old kids can, do pretty good with colouring in within the lines.
Right.
Eva was sort of out of, just scribbles on the page. And then mum and dad, they went on their little trip, came back to Joe's house about 3 months later, and she walked in the door, and Eva was just perfectly colouring in, just like the most placid child in the world. And that was mum and dad's first moment too, where they're like, because, Joe copped a bit of, one won't hurt, and just, we'll just take them for an ice cream, and we'll just take her to, this place or this place, and, buy little treats, and all these little one treats all added up, of course. But in mum and dad, grandparents, mine.
Right.
So just
Absolutely.
treating my grandchild, I'm just spoiling her. That's my job as a grandparent, to spoil my grandchildren, which is great. But that was mum and dad's first moment of like, okay, this is what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
And so, and that was only 3 months later. So to me, that's pretty much overnight. That's pretty fast to change a whole person's demeanor.
Absolutely. Especially after what was that, 3 or 4 years at that stage of pretty much constant challenges.
Yeah.
And so then did that flow into the foods that you guys are eating as well? Or Joe, did you start changing what you're eating as well?
Yeah, we went additive free as a family, so we kind of just had to figure it out all on our own. And what I know now compared to what I knew back then, I was doing okay. I was making an effort, but it wasn't as good as it is today. So we've certainly learned over time, but we did the full hog straight away. We had a massive reason to do that. And we just decided as a family that, we would go to the fridge and pantry, we would chuck out anything that we found. And we were really surprised. We filled 2 garbage bags full of food, and we didn't even think that we ate that bad. But it was things like there was additives in a breakfast cereal that she was eating. I'd let her have ice cream every now and again, and there was an additive in the ice cream, hundreds and thousands that we would put on some homemade biscuits, even ingredients in homemade, like desiccated coconut, for example. So, as we started looking at it, it was really shocking to see actually how much we were eating. But what we started with was food. And then we moved on to different things as the time came on. So I guess I kind of went the full hog with as much as I knew at the start. But it's not really what we tell people to do.
It's not what we would advise someone else, let me say.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy when you go the full hog right away, right? It brings up a lot of challenges.
It's really daunting.
Yeah, I know this is jumping the gun, but I just feel like I need to express it, for anyone who is like thinking about whether these things cause issues or not. It's like they definitely do. Don't wait until you have a 3-year-old that's scratching the skin off to make a change. Like food has additives and whether it's either food with additives or whether you feel like you need to exercise more or any of those things, like don't wait. I see it all the time. Like I get to see, people who are unwell, and that motivates me to look after myself, right? Because I don't want to get there. It's like, don't wait because you might not be so lucky, But
that makes a really good point, because this is what we're brought up with in Australia, especially in these Western, countries, is we're brought up to be proactive, to be reactive with our health. When you have a problem, then you go to the GP. When you have a problem, then you go see the pharmacy and, get some vitamins or whatever it might be. But what we actually really should be brought up with is being proactive and not getting, doing our best to not get sick in the first place. And look, I'm sure that's inevitable for, like we're all going to get sick at some point with something. But the best thing that we can do is just constantly be proactive with our healthcare. I haven't been to a GP in... I've lived here nearly 3 years, or so it's definitely 3 years, maybe 5 years, like that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, our GP back in the day knew us definitely by first name basis. We were there constantly. And I'll tell it's not a really funny story, but it's kind of a funny story, is I was standing at the counter this one time, and I'm filling another script for Eva. And I actually asked the pharmacist or the lady serving me, do you guys have a rewards card?
Wow.
Because we were there so much. And you know what? She said no, but they actually do now at chemists, have rewards cards for how much stuff you buy.
Yeah. And I think it's just changing. It's just changing the way that we think about things, right? I know for me, I want to be as healthy as possible before I have a child, and I don't want to know as much as possible, because if I can pass that on, they're going to start their life just from an infinitely higher level of health than perhaps I did, and perhaps my parents did, and so on and so forth. I think you guys talked about the other day, the damage that we do when, if we have a ruined gut microbiome, and then you give birth to a child who will then have a ruined gut microbiome. It's like you're passing on these challenges, and they're starting from a really poor baseline. It's hard from there.
Yeah, exactly. There's studies that are saying out there that they've tested umbilical cord blood, and the additives that we've consumed as a mother whilst being pregnant have been passed through. And some kids are starting off with like 200 odd additives and chemicals like glyphosate and different things within their systems the moment they're born, or obviously pre-birth, but they're testing obviously the umbilical cords. So it's just crazy.
Yeah. So I think, if we focus on it now, there's never a time like now, to make some change.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you said that, because when you think about a woman, for example, if you had a girl, right, it was your partner's mother who gave that little girl her egg, right? So, right. When you think about it, it has to be 3 generations long. So, my grandmother, she obviously, she lived off the land. She ate very primal, cooked stews and fermented and did everything that generation did. And then our mum, she was a hairdresser. She had all the hairspray going around, not much additive-free stuff happening, let me tell you, when our mum became an adult. And then there was us, and yes, we lived on a dairy farm when we were younger. We ate lots of veggies that were from the garden and different things, but cleaning products and all of that. And stuff from the supermarket came in. So by the time then I had a baby, so we've got, do you see what I mean? Like the generations are starting to get sicker and sicker and sicker. And what we are doing is we are passing that on to our children through our gut health. And it actually is changing DNA as the generations are coming through. And that's really scary. Like we need to fix it.
Yeah, 100%.
What we're also doing though is passing down our habits. And, you know, like Jo said, you know, our grandparents and their parents before them would have definitely cooked stews all day and had broths brewing and all the different homemade things. And then as marketing comes into it, as brands reinvent and invent brand new products, and, you know, something we get told all the time is, I ate as a child and it didn't harm me. And when we go back and go, let's just think about that. We've got a webinar that we run, and, you know, McDonald's and KFC and Pizza Hut were not introduced into Australia until the mid-60s, and some of them are the early 70s. So our parents weren't eating it as a child because it didn't exist in the country. So therefore, when we hear all the time, oh, I ate it all as a child and I haven't got any issues and it hasn't harmed me, the reality is you weren't. And that over time, we do. You fed it to us as children, but you didn't eat it as a child. So let's just get our facts straight for starters.
Right.
And when you look at things like Red Bull and all of those things that have come out, and the sports drinks, and none of those even were invented until the mid-80s. So they definitely weren't drinking any of those as kids. I remember even playing sport as a child, and we took cut up oranges to netball for half time and water. Like, they were our drinks. That's what we got. We didn't, you know, I trained netball here for a few years, and the kids would bring along the halftime mum would have her duty.
Yeah.
And it was all bags of lollies, and nearly all the children had Gatorade. And it was horrific. And I would cringe, but you can't say anything. You know, I'm not there to teach them that. I was there to coach them netball. So, but the times have completely changed, and we have to question why we're getting so sick.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also, you know, as you said, if they've been around from the start of the 70s, then there's 40 years worth of toxins that have been passed down, right? Yeah. And you talk, well, any of those companies will say it's safe. You know, you can still buy Roundup in Bunnings, right? It's like, how is that still a legal product? I don't understand. And it's like, yeah, sure. I mean, if I got some Roundup on my skin, is it going to kill me? No, it's not going to kill me. But and I'm not going to have any direct issues right then on the spot. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to give me issues in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, or it doesn't mean it's not going to trigger some underlying chronic illness or mental challenge. Like, absolutely it is. And our body isn't made to get rid of that stuff easily, right? Like, our body's made to digest fruits and vegetables and to be in clean air all the time. It's not made to deal with, you know, all the toxins we're breathing in from the road, or things we're putting on our heads in the shower, or things we're putting in our foods, you know, like those
exactly,
all those nasties, right? Our body doesn't know what to do with that stuff.
Our toxic load is so high, and there are certain things that we can control, and there are very much things that we can't control, and we know that, and that's what we teach throughout our courses and our programs. Because I can't control, well, I can, but I don't have a gazillion dollars. I can't control what car I drive to a degree. I can a little bit, but you know what I mean? Right. Or that I use petrol, or that I have a lawnmower. I actually have an electric lawnmower now. But, you know, there's certain things, you know, in our lives that we can't control, or that we have limited control over through budgets and things. But there are so many things that we can control. And if we just did those things, the world would be a totally different place. And, you know, things would creep in, like even just buying, you know, I bought organic sheets the other day for my bed. Now I'm 6 years down my track of living additive free. Finally, I saved up and I bought some organic bed linen for my bed. And so we're not saying to everybody, tomorrow you need to go out and wipe out your whole home and start from scratch, and you need all of these things in there within 24 hours. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, we live in reality, and we know that it's a process. And we say this to our students all the time. It's a process. Don't look at us and compare to us. We're 6-7 years down the track, but we started where you were. So if in 6 or 7 years you can be where we are now, that's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into the house in general because there's so many different areas of the house where we're bringing toxins into our life without knowing. But before we get there, there are some main additives that you guys talk about avoiding. And I just kind of want to get into that. Like if this is new to you and you're just realizing, okay, there's some bad stuff in some of this food that I'm putting in my body. Where's like a good place to start? You know, what should we be looking out for?
Absolutely. Probably, okay, 3? Can we limit it to 3? All right. We'll see how we go.
Yeah.
3 that I would probably pick, and Joe might pick 3 different, I'm not sure. But I would definitely look at MSG, and I'll dive into that, or Joe might. A Natto, which is ANNATTO, and sulfites would be the 3 that I would think would be found in every person's cupboard or pantry, fridge, freezer in the country, unless they understand those additives. And here's why, because I'll start with sulfites. Yeah. If you're a wine drinker, you're going to hate me, right? But if you've got desiccated coconut in your pantry because you make Anzac biscuits on the weekend or whatever it happens to be that you use your coconut in, you'll most likely find that you're using preservative 202, gosh, mental blank, and sulfites. So if that would be the biggest one that I think would be an eye-opener for people. It's in a lot of foods, mostly dried fruit, heavily in dried fruit, but it can be found in some drinks like cordials and fruit juices, especially the ones on the supermarket shelves, not in the fridge. They're not generally fresher, but the ones that are warm, that sit on the shelf.
Yep.
What else is it found in?
Grapes.
Yeah. Yes.
So there actually is a warning label around the top of the grape packet that this contains sulfur dioxide. They're rife in grape. Yeah.
So what they do is with the grapes is they sit sulfur pads on the shelving, and I actually was in Mildura recently and I saw this. When they pick the grapes, there's all these racks on the side of the road. They were all on the side of the road, and they sit all the grapes on these racks and then on sulfur pads. So the sulfur dioxide goes up through the grapes and then they box them up, and the sulfur pads are still in there until they get to the supermarket shelf. So it's just heavily treated. But here's this horrible part about sulfur and sulfites is it is actually listed on the Australian Government Food Standards website that sulfur dioxide is harmful to asthmatics and asthmatics should avoid it. But where is that that is publicly, everyone can go and Google that and find it. But I don't know about you, Joe, and Joe's daughter was heavily asthmatic. Were you ever told by a doctor to avoid sulfur dioxide?
No, she was given most of the time. By the time she got in there, I mean, she was probably dehydrated. And, once they treated her and we
in
were
ER? Yeah,
in ER. Yeah. And when we were well enough to go home, she was always offered a Zupa Duper. So, to rehydrate her and look, those doctors and nurses, God, they work their guts out, and I just take my hat off to them, and I just think they're the best people in the world. But
amazing.
I just feel I feel sorry for them as well. And we have lots of nurses and doctors as well that do our program, and they just their hands are tied. They have to do what they have to.
But surely if it's listed on the Australian Government website, that they should be aware that perhaps, Joe, let's look at what your food is. And if you're eating sulfur dioxide, I highly suggest you avoid it because it can cause issues with asthmatics. Should be the first thing a doctor says to us.
It's really hard. The other option is a Vegemite sandwich or a plastic cheese sandwich. Really, they're the only options you can have in there. So we've got a lot of work to do, put it that way. But I would agree with sulfites for sure. For anyone who has any respiratory problems, yep, sulfites.
So how many times did Eva get bronchitis or pneumonia before she was 4?
Well, she had pneumonia once. She had bronchitis a couple of times, but I mean, we were hospitalised for 3-4 days once with her asthma from a major flare-up, and that was from a weekend. So we'd been additive free for probably about 18 months. We're still finding our way, but what had happened was we got a bit relaxed and we were like, oh, I think we're all good now, and not really putting our foot down as much as we were at the start. And we were letting a few things come back into the house, and not a lot, but just a couple of little jars of maybe Vegemite and something else.
Right.
And, and she'd gone away that weekend, and the people she'd gone away with were family, and they just kind of didn't respect our additive free lifestyle and had just fed her a whole bunch of crazy food for the weekend. And she came home on the Sunday, and I knew she was off the rails, and she vomited all through her bed that night.
Oh.
On Monday, I've got this horrific video of her just rocking back and forth, going, like she was, she used to do. She wasn't scratching her face, but she was saying, like, Mummy, please make it stop. I can't make it stop. I can't make it stop. I had to try and send her to school like that. She was in prep. And by the Wednesday, we were in hospital with her having a massive asthma attack, and that's where we stayed for the few days. And as a result, we often get told, oh, but, aren't the kids missing out? Like, are the kids not missing out on treats and, kind of being bad mum because they're missing out?
Being so cruel. Your kids are missing out.
But what she did miss out on was her first ever school cross country, because she had a massive asthma attack and she couldn't go.
Yeah.
She
missed out on life.
Yeah, 100%. And Joe, like, coming out of that, what were your thoughts after that, given you guys had sort of loosened up a little bit?
Do you really want to know? So what we did was we had some stern words to those people, and we said, unless you're going to respect our decision and her lifestyle, she's not coming back. You won't get her again. Like, so you do it our way or you don't do it at all.
I think there's a real lesson. I think there's a real lesson in that. Again, regardless of what you're doing in your health and lifestyle, whenever you try and improve it in some way, people are going to shoot you down. People are going to say it's wrong. And it's like, stick with your guns, stay inspired, and just keep on going. Like, whenever we improve our health, we know that it's right, and if we just follow that inner guidance, because people are going to make it hard, but they're not the ones with the issues, and they will probably have the issues at the end of the day. So
we're not here to criticize.
No.
It's they don't understand it because they don't know it, and we only do know what we know. And again, it's habits, it's things that have been handed down through generations. It's that mentality of a little bit won't matter. It's just one weekend, and until they see it for real or they witness something, that's where the biggest eye-opener is. And unfortunately, it can take an incident like Joe had to go through for that to be what they understood. So, and we see that in our program as well. We see a lot of mums and dads, and I do not back, my husband's great. He's a great father, but it took him a lot longer to jump on board the Additive Free train. Before, and we see this all the time, sorry to the men that are listening, but we see this all the time in our course as well, is that the women are trying, their mums, they're doing their thing, and the dads, unfortunately, are taking a lot longer to jump on because, well, I don't really know why, but because they do. So I just encourage you, if you are a husband or a dad and you're sitting there thinking, oh, my wife's kind of mentioned additives before, or maybe, something, please listen to her. She's probably learnt something that you may not have. And this could go vice versa as well. I'm not ditching on men at all. But it is really important, and grandparents and things like that as well. We see a lot of my children go to my grandparents on the weekends or on every Friday because I work or whatever it might be, and they just don't listen, or they go to their dad's house every weekend because they're split families, and they just don't listen. And so I just really encourage you to really open your mind to it and to listen and to try and understand, because like you said, we don't know what we don't know, but if someone is trying to improve their life, who are we to say that's not right? Like, when it shouldn't be that way.
Amen. Yeah, 100%. I want to jump back to sulfites. What?
We went down a track there. Sorry.
No, it was a good track. Definitely glad we went there. What are some other names? Are there any other names for sulfites? Like, might it be called something else, or is it always sulfur?
Mostly it'll say sulfur dioxide or sulfites. Mostly it'll say those two words. That's probably the most common you'll see.
Yeah.
Sulfate, it might say sulfate, sulfites. It'll be one of those.
Or it'll just have the number as well. Like it won't say anything at all. It'll just have number 220.
Yep. Yeah, I see that a lot in packets of nuts at like the big supermarkets.
Yeah, that would be maybe because if it's got fruit in there, like dried apricots, for example, they should be brown and frizzled up and quite ugly looking.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be bright orange.
Yeah.
If they're bright orange, they are filled with sulfur dioxide.
Yeah.
Something to say to people, just imagine, so they're listening, you've probably got a sauna, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast. Let's just pretend I start to fill this sauna with sulfur dioxide and you're sitting in here and you would start to cough and sneeze and splutter and you'd find it really struggling to breathe. Eventually, you would actually pass out. You might even start bleeding from the ears or the nose, like if we're filling this room up. And eventually, it would actually kill you eventually, you know, if you were in it for long enough. But yet we can eat it every day, even though it says on the government website to not eat it. Like, it's just mental.
Yeah, it is. I think we, the power of these shows is to get the message out there, you know, because that's not going to be put on the news anytime soon, right?
No,
it is not.
Unfortunately.
No, too many people are making too much money. So, so your second one was
a natto.
A natto. Tell me more about that.
I'll go.
Yeah, okay.
You've talked heaps already. So a natto is a natural additive. It's made from a seed, and they get a seed and they shell the seed, and it's the colour generally red, but sometimes orange or yellow, and it is natural. Just the same as tobacco is natural. So it is natural. So what you will find, it is in a lot of things, and because they can say natural flavouring or natural colouring. So it can be used either as a flavouring or a colour. It has a slight nutty taste to it. And anyway, and you can buy the natto spice. Like, it is used in countries around the world to flavour things. It looks like a bit like paprika, it would look like.
Yep.
So, but because it is natural, doesn't always mean it's safe for us. As we know, throughout history, we once thought tobacco was kind of great and everyone smoked and even marketed to pregnant women. Yeah. But we now know that not everything is great for us, even though they tell us it was. And so natto is one of those things because it's heavily marketed to children and it's in a lot of products. And I'm talking yogurt, even cheese. If your cheese is like a chili flavour and it might have a red hue to it, it's probably got a natto in there. Plastic cheese, as we call it, you know, the floppy plastic cheese that comes in the plastic wrappers. Yeah. And the other one that is in, and we saw this a lot in America, is that orange cheese, but they call it cheddar cheese, but our cheddar cheese is different. Our cheddar cheese is yellow. Yeah. But if your cheese is any colours, but a lot of yogurt, ice cream, it's in a lot of ice cream. It's in a lot of cereals because, again, it's the colour. And it's in a lot of biscuits, even like a store-bought sponge cake, because they don't use real eggs. They have to colour it with something, so they use a natto.
Yeah.
Loads and things. We've even found it in tinned apricots before. Okay. If you've ever made apricot chicken, tinned apricots, which also had sulfites, so it was a double whammy. But because of that reason, we hate it. And what it does to kids, so many reports of head banging in children. One of the ladies, the staff members that works for us, her name's Sherilyn, and she won't care at all that I'm sharing this story because she's allowed us to share it before. Her two boys are both autistic, and one is very much on the like non-verbal and very autistic. And he was banging his head as a child to the point where they had to put a head protection on him. Right. And what he would do was he would purposely walk from the carpet to the tiles and slam his head as hard as he could as a 2-year-old into the tiled floor. Now, he's nonverbal, so he couldn't explain exactly what was going on. And she came to us actually because she did our course right back at the beginning of our journey, and now she actually works for us. But when she found out and read about a natto, she went straight and threw all of those things out. And you know what stopped happening? Him banging his head on the floor. Can you imagine being a parent and witnessing your child walk purposely because he didn't get the desired effect from the carpet? He would walk over to the tiles and smash his head on the floor. She's just one of hundreds of people that have reported head banging as an issue.
Mm.
And anyone that can talk, the kids will say that it feels like there's like bugs or ants or something inside their brain and they just need to get it out. And so they bang their head on a wall or on the floor. It's horrible. It can lead to a lot of behavioural issues as well, and skin rashes and skin irritations, eczema, those types of things. Just, it's horrific because it can be classed as, because it is natural. So they can write natural flavours and, you know, we all think that's great because, it must be natural, it must be good for us. You've just got to be so wary.
Yeah, that's traumatic. I got goosebumps from just feeling ill just hearing that. Natural flavors are in everything, right?
Yes.
And like the word natural is like some buzzword. People think they're doing the right thing. I certainly used to love Allen's natural lollies. Not so much natural stuff.
It's also the number. So it will say on the ingredients panel annatto, or it will say 160B. So the number for annatto is 160B. So just have a look out for that. I remember it was Eva's birthday and I'd been to the health food store and I was looking for some lollies and things to put on the table. And I come across these organic lollipops. I was like, oh, great. And in the ingredients was organic annatto.
like
not so great. But, you know, this is the thing. You only know what you know. And unless you know what you know, you can only do what you can do.
Yeah, 100%. That's a great one. 160B annatto.
160B. So corn chips, I found organic annatto in organic noodles. Noodles, a lot of things at the supermarket. You'll possibly find annatto.
Is there a chance that like people, you know, who aren't on the spectrum still feel these things after eating this food?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even if it banged her head, but when I worked in kindergarten, I certainly witnessed quite a few children. It wasn't uncommon for children to do that. But oh man, she used to just, it wasn't pretty having that additive.
Yeah, most behavioural issues as well will be linked back to annatto.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. I think also like in as we age, like we increase our toxicity and our body can signal less well about things that are going on. I reckon there's fully grown adults having these things going on in their head. They just don't realize it. You know, they're feeling this thing and then, maybe it's the coffee I had earlier had something, you know what I mean? And just disregarding it. Whereas children are so like, everything is just more intense and they want to take action right away instead of just saying to someone, I've got this weird feeling in my head. So they resort to some weird.
We're both about to talk.
Things.
Well, their bodies are smaller. You know, when you have a bowl of ice cream, I would probably have about the same size bowl of ice cream as my now 10-year-old daughter. And she's 10 and I'm nearly 40. So, you know, they're so much littler. And I often, the stats are there to show that we're actually feeding our kids worse than we're feeding ourselves. And when you really think about that, we actually, a lot of us are, you know, like she would often have a bowl of ice cream, but I wouldn't, you know, because I was trying to lose weight or whatever it might be.
Lunches are the worst.
Yeah, I mean, you know, kids quite often it's common now for kids to take around 4 different packet foods in their lunchbox, you know, because parents are busy and we're all marketed to that it's convenient to do that, etc. And, you know, I get it. But I know myself, I wouldn't eat 4 bags of mini shapes or whatever it might be. So, you know, they are so much littler, but they're also getting fed a very processed diet. And everyone's not doing this. I understand that, you know, but in general, the stats are there to show that. And I know that from when I worked in kindergarten as well.
Yeah. The other thing with additives too, if we want to take a step back, is they're not tested in isolation. They're tested in isolation to each other. They're not tested in conjunction with other additives. So they'll go and test annatto or colour 160 or whatever, right? They'll go and test a certain food colour off by itself all alone. But what happens is that's not how we eat food. Let's be real. We eat a plate of food and, you know, there could be any number of additives and preservatives on that plate at any given time. We've eaten breakfast, lunch and dinner and all the snacks in between. And over the course of a day, we've added up on we've got this Post-it note webinar that we do. It's quite fun, actually. And we get Post-it notes and we stick them up on the wall every time we have a food that we would have eaten. So we have our bowl of cereal and, we pretend we've poured that into its bowl and stuff. And there's about 4 additives in that we now know. So 4 Post-it notes go up on the wall. And then we have lunch and it's the tiny teddies or the barbecue shapes or whatever the biscuits of choice are and enough number of additives. And then we have lunch and it might be a wrap. Now, green wraps from the supermarket are only green because they're coloured with 2 food colourings, right? They don't have spinach in them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple more food colorings plus about 3 preservatives. And then the child at school's, it's a birthday party. So they've all been given Zupa Dupas. And then, you know what I mean? Like it's this, they're not tested to be eaten like that. And they're also only ever tested and the limitations are placed on adults. So when you go to the government website and say, how many additives can I eat in a day? The limitations are all about what an adult can eat. There are no limitations set for what children should be eating. Yeah. So that is wrong in itself because, as Joe said, our children are eating these things more often than what we are as adults. And there's no the limitations are all set about what an average adult diet looks like. So that's how much is allowed into the food that we consume.
It's just like the whole setup of the way that they give us information is wrong. It's based on adults. It's based on one chemical at a time. It's just like the whole thing.
Tested on animals as well. Animals don't live as long as we live. A rat doesn't live as long as we live. So we can test it for 12 months or 2 years, not
40, 50, 60 years.
Yeah, 100%. And I like what you're saying there too, Tracey. Like, the concoction of all of these things together in the body, like no one knows what that is, and every single person has a different chemical makeup, quite literally. They've been exposed to different things and we don't know what happens when all of those things are getting together with one another.
Exactly.
That's right. That's right.
So like the average child that I saw and my own children on any given day, my kids danced, right? And I would take them along to dancing from school. Now, the most common the snack from after school before they would start dancing, and you're going to hate this, was 2-minute noodles.
Oh, no.
Because it was quick and convenient, right? The children could do it themselves. They could put it in the microwave, fill the bucket up, like it comes in a polystyrene bucket ready to go, or plasticky type bucket ready to go. Yeah. But I'm not kidding. Probably 70% of the children would turn up with the 2-minute noodles. And before I knew anything about anything, that was my choice, right? So they would take some 2-minute noodles. They would then have to try and dance for like 5 hours, right? Which was clearly not the right food to give them. They would also have a banana or an apple or something like that. But the 2-minute noodles would be there. Now, in 2-minute noodles, there's 5, I think there was, versions of MSG. And it's not just in the sachet, because we get asked that all the time. It's in the noodle as well as the sachet.
Oh, my God.
And, so we're trying to tell our kids to concentrate at their dance lesson and to pay attention, and we'll talk about MSG as well on that, is it does not make your brain concentrate. It has the most opposite effect ever. So your brain just goes into complete overdrive and you can't concentrate. And a lot of people end up with headaches and migraines. But anyway, I'd take my kids along, they'd be dancing and then expecting them to come home and calm down. And so maybe when we got home, I would have maybe a barbecue chicken and some homemade veggies. I could boil some veggies and the store-bought chicken, which has 6 versions of MSG in it. And on top of that, I would make some gravy out of the tin and put some gravy on top of their dinner, which has another couple of versions of MSG in it. So that's one afternoon before I even understood what I was doing. I fed my children and myself a whole concoction of MSG as one additive, and then wondered why they wouldn't fall asleep that night.
Yeah. And wonder why we're all like still hungry after dinner. It's like we've just eaten all this food and we still want to eat more. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, because that's what MSG does as well.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about MSG. So, I guess what's it doing in our bodies? How's it interacting with the brain? What sort of?
Do you want me to talk now? You sure I can talk now?
You're allowed now.
Okay. All right, MSG. Yeah, so it does just that. It changes the brain receptors in your brain, changes your taste buds. Your brain basically says, so I don't even know where to start. MSG is a really tricky one.
Yeah.
Right, because what companies have done, they realize that we actually don't like to buy MSG. They know that it makes us feel ill. We get bloated, probably have twitchy legs, upset tummy.
A little bit gassy.
Gassy, a bit of a headache. So what they do is they have renamed and reformulated a lot of products to still be a flavor enhancer, but it is still a version of glutamate. So it might not be monosodium glutamate, but it is still a glutamate version. And glutamates are rife in food everywhere. Yeah. It seems like packaged food, unless it's an original flavor, still check the ingredients, but generally original plain flavor is most of the time okay. But if it's a barbecue flavor, chicken flavor, cheese flavor, sour cream, whatever it might be, it will generally have some type of enhanced flavor in there, which is the glutamate. And so, we're eating these for our morning tea, recess, when you get home from school, rip a packet open in the car if you're heading to dancing or soccer training or whatever it might be. Saturday morning outings, you go on a bushwalk, you take packet food with you.
Yeah.
And the more you eat that, the more your brain says, I want more of that. So then what happens is you don't want the natural food. You don't want the plate of veggies because they taste bland. Like they don't have an enhanced flavor about them.
Yeah.
And we find with a lot of our students is that when they remove the glutamates, the MSG, their fussy kids start actually eating better food. And it's because that, fussy child wanted that enhanced flavor because that was all they knew. Like their brain knew that, their taste buds knew that. And so when those receptors all change, they change with what they eat as well. And that takes time because there's a lot of habits that are formed there. There's a lot of psychological looking at the plate going, that looks different. I'm not eating that. So there is a lot of time that, has to happen in that process. But, oh, man, it's so worth it to just remove those glutamates for that reason alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's that, and your taste buds kind of get, like you said, used to all of this unnatural flavors. And then you eat like something which I would consider delicious, like a nice papaya or something. It's just like, what is this? Like this wet mess that doesn't taste of much, right?
Yeah.
And the transition out of that can take some time,
I really tried to retrain myself and my husband. Still a bit of a work in progress with this, but the kids as to what a treat is, right? Because I used to say a treat was, let's just say the mini bag of shapes, they come in a 12 packet or whatever they do. And you'd have one treat when you got home from school. Yeah, go and grab a treat, or go and grab a treat, go and grab a treat.
Right.
And a treat wasn't actually a treat. So we've worked really hard in our family to re-educate ourselves on what treats are. So a treat to me now is mango season. Oh, my God. I just like that most delicious, juicy mango that only comes out in Tasmania in never. So when you get a really delicious mango, I'm like, this is the best treat in the whole freaking world. So I think it's about like re-educating yourself on how you talk, how you act, how, you do that. Because what really is a treat? That to me is like a treat.
I agree. My girlfriend will be cheering from the sidelines because that too is her favorite treat. Like a box of organic mangoes down from Queensland. Yes.
To get them into Tassie, we're paying like $9 a mango. Like it's a treat, man. Don't waste the mango. Eat every single bit off that pip.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So Jo, did you have some additives that you wanted to mention as well before we move on?
Oh, dude, I could be here all day. But, I think they are 3 artificial food colors. I mean, I think we all know artificial food colors probably aren't great for us, but I don't think what people do know is that a lot of them are carcinogenic, and that scares the pants off me when artificial food colors are just everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think just reading the ingredients, like this is probably, maybe where we're going next in the podcast, but all you have to do is flip that packet over and read those ingredients. And if you don't know what any of them mean, some are probably fine. Like, not all long words mean a baddie, right? But until you know and until you're educated enough, just avoid it. Yeah, just avoid it. Just know your ingredients. Don't ever look at the nutritional panel. Always look at the ingredients listing. It will go from highest volume to lowest volume. So if sugar is your if your sugar is your first ingredient, you know that that product has more sugar in there over anything else.
Yeah.
So your ingredients panel is where you need to go. Never, ever, ever believe the front of the packet.
Yeah.
They will always have things like no added MSG. You flip it over and there's freaking glutamates in there.
There are so many hidden things.
No artificial flavors or colors, no preservatives, right? That's a big one. No artificial flavors or colors. And then when you flip it over, it's full of preservatives. So they're not lying. It doesn't contain any artificial colors, but it's full of preservatives.
Yeah.
So always look at the ingredients.
And the other thing is...
Oh, sorry.
No, you go. I was going to say
would you also say just if it has numbers in it, avoid it as well?
Yes and no. Again, it's the same unless you know what those numbers mean, because not all numbers are bad either. So like 330, for example, is just citric acid, and that's okay.
Right.
There's numbers. I think there's 3 numbers for baking powder. So they're okay. It is tricky.
Yeah. And sometimes what you might find is, unfortunately, because of the way things are labelled in Australia, is even natural colours have to use the same numbers as the synthetic versions. So it's about trusting that brand as well. So there are things that I buy that look like they have bad numbers in them because they have to use the same number and there's no distinction there. So it is really hard sometimes to get it right. And again, sometimes you just have to go, okay, I'm pretty trusting in that brand because I've followed, I know what they were about and whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. And so that kind of segues in well then. You guys run some amazing courses online and help people get out of eating additives and take some steps in the right direction. Like, what do you guys typically run people through? Like, where do you start? Like, we've just scared the pants off people.
Yes, we have. I promise you can eat more than a lettuce.
Organic.
Organic lettuce.
Organic.
I promise you don't have to just drink water. Okay, so that is a really good question. What we teach people is, 1, to start reading the ingredients. And we run them through how to do that. And we run them through the health star rating and to what look out for on the front of packets. And the little hidden things there, like Joe mentioned, no added MSG. I would have once gone, Ripper, no MSG. It's that little keyword added that gets the trigger there. I was like, okay, well, it's no added MSG. It must be MSG in there somewhere. They just haven't put any extra in.
Yeah.
Little things like that. So definitely reading ingredients labels, ignoring front of packets, turning packets over and understanding what you're eating is where we start. And then we delve into what every additive is. We have videos on it and we interview experts and we delve into exactly what additive, let's say MSG, and we dive right into it quite deep and we give them all the information, including a whole list of names of potential MSG or glutamates as they're referred to. And each additive has that topic. We also discuss things like, how do you go to a birthday party with kids once you're additive free and, still have fun at the party? Or how do you host a birthday party of your own? And I know some people sitting here that maybe don't have children might be going, well, that's a bit of a boring topic. But trust me, like as a mum, when you've got a child that is severely affected by additives, and I'm talking like, for me, it wouldn't have been a huge concern because my kids don't react that bad to additives in that way. But for a parent that does, it would be their worst nightmare to take their kids along knowing it was going to instantly change their behaviour and have them potentially ruin a birthday party of some child. So we take them through all sort of really practical steps. We have a whole section on huspains. We don't call them husbands, sorry. So
that's me. No, we love our husbands.
We do. And I said that. My husband's fantastic, but it did take him a little bit longer. So to know we do, it's a common question.
We actually interview my husband in the program.
Yeah, we do.
Cool.
Yeah.
We do. And we take them through every little thing that could potentially they have a question about. How to feel not guilty. There were so many times that I went, oh my God, look what I did to my children before I realised what was not so great. And you have to look back and go, I didn't know. I would never have done that on purpose to my child had I known. Yeah. So you've got to understand the guilt and how to process that. And so we take them through all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I just want to mention for any huspains that are out there, I think, you know, I certainly think about, I love my dad so much. And, but I think back to when he would be cooking dinner and, you know, we talk about like the generational gap. It's almost like the blokes are like 3 generations behind, you know, in that sense of, you know, it was bangers and mash, you know, packet, gravy and packet potatoes and some sausages, you know, and he just didn't know. And he's just a product of his environment. You know, his parents didn't know. It's not their fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I promise you we don't bag out husbands or partners or grandparents or anyone. I promise you. It is very much a common theme, I guess. And so we do cover it. And, you know, you can skip over that part if you've got the most support. And we do have some fantastic supportive families that do the program as a whole, which is great.
It was really cool. Like when a husband and wife duo are doing the program together, the bloke is actually really supportive in the group, like with the women that don't have a supportive husband. So we find that, you know, they give out their advice and you know, help as well. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so if we've taken some of these or a lot of these additives out, are you guys pressed for time? Can we go for a little bit more? I want to talk a bit about the house if that's possible.
Yeah. Sure, keep going.
Yeah, cool. So we've taken some of this food out. And, you know, I think the whole food conversation is a whole nother podcast in itself. But let's say we're eating a little bit more cleanly. What are the other areas of our lifestyle where we want to raise our awareness in terms of the house? You know, where do we look next?
Definitely is your body care.
Yeah.
Definitely your body care and skincare. So, and when I talk about body care and skincare, I'm talking shampoos, deodorants, if you're a female, moisturizers, makeup, even men, I know we use moisturizers and maybe makeup, but you know, so yeah, definitely your skincare and body care and definitely deodorants and fragrances. So perfumes, aftershaves, anything along those lines. The fragrance industry is awful, I will say. And there can be thousands of chemicals added into a fragrance to make it, one, stay on your skin for longer, which is phthalates. And they make the fragrance stick to your skin or stick to your clothing for longer, and they're pretty toxic. But even just to get that smell to smell like it does is insane. The chemicals and the processes to go through. Like this whole, it's people's jobs to be a fragrance person.
Yeah.
That's they're a chemist generally, and they create all these fragrances. And if you've never watched the Stink documentary on Netflix, it's a really great documentary to watch, and it's just called Stink. And I highly recommend it to go and watch it. And it gives this massive insight into the fragrance industry. It's an American fella, and he takes you through the whole lot, and it's real eye-opener. So I highly recommend watching that. But what happens with our body care and our skin care is everything we put onto ourselves or we're breathing in by way of spraying it around our bodies ends up within our body. So if you have health issues, like I've had thyroid issues from 16, and never once has anybody said to me, medical person or anybody said to me, what are you using? What are you using in your skincare? What are you using on your body? What are you using in your home, in your cleaning products? What fragrances are you using within your body, within your home routine? Now, fragrances are also very disruptive to the endocrine system. And never once did a doctor ask me that, even though I had severe thyroid problems. So again, I'm not dishing out on doctors because they're great and they certainly have their purpose in the world. But it took me to understand it all to fix myself, which, you know, I don't feel ideal. But anyway, fragrance, yeah, definitely body care and skincare I would look at next. And they're the easiest things to switch out.
Yeah.
So easy.
Body care was definitely easy. And the other thing is cleaning products.
Cleaning products.
And you could do this tomorrow. Oh my God, cleaning products
now.
Well, you might have to go to the supermarket and buy some vinegar. But honestly, cleaning products is the easiest thing to swap out. All you need is some pure essential oils, because there's essential oils and not so great essential oils. So you want 100% pure essential oils with no synthetic fillers, and some white vinegar and water. And unless you've got a, you know, stone or marble bench top, you don't want to be putting vinegar on that. Just that's it. Like bit
of baking powder.
Yeah.
Bicarb powder, bicarb powder, not baking powder. You don't need it to rise. So bit of bicarb soda.
Castile soap.
And some Castile soap.
Yeah.
About 4 or 5 ingredients, and you can make every single product to clean your home, wash your car, do your outside furniture, do your windows and glass, everything.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like 1,000 YouTube videos on how to use those ingredients to make cleaning products.
Just go to our website.
Yeah, honestly, we've got recipes all over our website.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Like cleaning products, just throw them out now. Like go to the sink.
You know, in Australia, there's no law. I encourage anyone listening thinking, oh, my cleaning products are probably fine. I'll go check the ingredients out. Please do. Please do. But here's a little spoiler alert. You won't find the ingredients on your cleaning products because in Australia and New Zealand, they don't have to be listed. So nobody does. So we don't actually know what we're using. I looked up a blue window cleaner recently and to figure out what the ingredients were. It's not on the bottle. It's not on the spray bottle. So I went to their website. It is on their website, which I applauded, and I thought that's great. And it says on their website, known irritations to skin, eyes and nose, I think it was, but definitely said skin and eyes, and not once on their website or on the product itself could I find something to say, please wear gloves and eye protection, even though on their website they were telling you it's an irritant to skin and eyes.
Yeah.
And I don't know about anybody else, but when I spray my windows to clean them, often you get a whiff back of it in your face, and it definitely gets on your skin. If we don't, and I mean, yes, they had the listings of ingredients there. Some of them were known irritants and they still had them in their products. I mean, what's with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how people can run a business with morals like that. Maybe because their bank accounts are ginormous.
There's not a lot there. It's about the dollar.
Yeah. I mean, we all know Johnson's and Johnson's now. We know it's, baby powder and arsenic links.
Yeah.
Not so great, but no one seemed to care.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we've cleaned all of our cleaning products. We've thrown in the bin. I also just want to touch on as well from my experience. I remember I used to get up in the morning and I'd walk straight into the shower before I knew how beautiful a morning walk was and morning rituals. This was years ago. And I'd walk straight in the shower and then it'd just be like shampoo, whatever I'm putting under my arms, some dodgy soap. And then I'd go and I'd brush my teeth, and I'm putting all this Colgate stuff in there. And it's just like, and then I'd put Lynx deodorant on. And it's like, it's like, oh, good morning. Here's my my cone of chemicals for the day. Excellent. And then I just go about my day. And for me, actually, that was one of the first things that I changed when I started getting healthy. And I don't know, I just felt different when I wasn't putting all that stuff on. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah. But it's just like you're clearer or something. I don't know.
Yeah. We get so many people that say to us, because we teach to start with food, but we always say start with anything, because anything is better than nothing. And cleaning and skincare and body care and the shampoos all fall in under that category are so easy to switch out. There are so many fantastic brands out there now.
Yeah. They're so linked to brain fog, and, you know, we're all told as adults, like, because we're so busy, you know, we're meant to be tired. It's like, no, you're actually not. Genetics has a part to play, and sometimes it does, but a lot of the time it doesn't. Irritable bowel syndrome, like I suffered badly with that, and I don't have any problems at all anymore. And
skin
irritations,
eczema, dermatitis, dandruff,
headaches is a huge one linked to fragrance and products, you know, artificial ingredients in your skincare.
If you've ever sat next to someone on an aeroplane, or sat next to someone at the movie theatre, or even in the grocery line at the supermarket, and you can smell their perfume and your nose starts itching and twitching and you get a headache instantly, or you just start coughing, that's a reaction that you are having. Your body is telling you to please don't use that stuff because it's not great for me.
Well, Mum used to wear this perfume when we were little. She'd wear the perfume, and we would like beg her not to wear it in the car, because every time Tracey would spew, and that was her body's way of like going, and my body doesn't like that smell.
Don't get me wrong, I still get motion sickness, but when Mum would wear that perfume, it would almost be instant.
Yeah. And the body always gives us signals so quickly when it's around something it doesn't want. You know, it's just over time, if we continue to put ourselves in the presence of that thing, eventually it'll suppress our body and we won't start to notice it, right?
That's right. We get used to the headaches, don't we? We get used to feeling tired. We get used to the skin irritations, or, you know, maybe we have a steroid cream to fix that. And we're not really questioning why we're getting it. Yeah. Why are we getting the skin irritation? Why are we getting the headaches? Why do I have an upset stomach? Yeah. And if we can get back to that why.
The root cause.
Yeah, everything changes. I mean, it's taken a lot of work to fix my gut health. Like, fixing gut health is not a quick process. It takes years to fix your gut health. And to be honest, I'm still probably even going through it now. But far out, I smashed it for about 30 years or more, 35 years. Yeah. And, or maybe not quite that long, 33 years. And because it's going to take a few years to heal it. It's pretty badly damaged.
Yeah, exactly. It's been copping abuse for a while.
It's put up with a lot.
Yeah, no, wise words. And I think there's a lesson in that, you know, let's take some time and let our body do its thing on its time scale, you know.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So you guys have been awesome. I feel like we covered a lot of stuff there. Was there anything you would share with someone who's perhaps having some issues with their kids, or just in general, or they just know that they want to make some positive change in the food that they're putting in their body? Anything you would say to people in those situations?
I think I would just say, one, see if you can get some education. So, of course, we have our programs and we've spoken about that. But look, even if it's not us and you didn't gel with us today, get some education from someone and start to learn this information yourself. And find some supportive group, because what we've found with our groups is that the more support that they get, the more chance that they will make the lifelong changes. And I don't want people to think it's a quick fix, or I'll just do it for a month and everything will be okay. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, and you have to want to live that lifestyle. Yeah. So for us, we teach our students to figure out their why. Why do you want to change and make these changes? And once they have to write them down and send them to us. And there's some of them are the most powerful whys you will ever read. And once you have that though, like mine was just, I realized I was keeping my children safe from everything else except the food that they were eating. So I would make sure they wear their seatbelt. I would make sure they rode a bike with a helmet on. You know, I held their hand when they were little and crossing the road. I kept them safe from all these things. And when I realized I wasn't keeping them safe from food, that was my why. I needed to keep them safe from food, because I realized that would have a long-term damaging effect for them. And once you figure that out, you're like, oh, well, that's a no-brainer. Of course I want to keep my children safe, or it's now turned back to me. I obviously want to live my lifestyle. But the first time it was, okay, well, what's my why? Why do I want to live additive free? Well, I want to help my kids. So figure that out. Find someone that you gel with and that you want to be your support cheer squad, and get some support, because doing it alone, as Jo will know, is really hard, and you're less likely to probably make it an entire lifestyle, because it can get really hard.
Yeah. Jo?
No, I was just going to say, yep, just ditto that.
Yeah. Find your why, 100%. For anyone who perhaps doesn't have any major issues, if just getting this stuff out of our life, like, your life will be better. The universe will thank you for doing something positive for your health, and you'll just have a better experience of this short time that we have on the earth. And
that's right.
For me,
because we don't have very long here.
Exactly. Exactly. So, really, really cool. And you guys provide amazing support through what you guys do, and inspiration too. Your Instagram is awesome. I love it. If people want to get in touch with you, find out more about what you guys do, where can they do that?
Everything is at Additive Free Lifestyle. So additivefreelifestyle.com is our website. Our course is additivefreelifestyle.com/AFME for Additive Free Made Easy.
All of the links are on our website. You don't have to remember that.
We've got Facebook and Instagram. They're probably our two platforms that we are only on. Again, Additive Free Lifestyle, but
yeah, we have an email list as well if anyone wants to jump onto that. But you can do all of that from the website.
Yeah. And you guys have amazing recipes, and like, there's so much good stuff on there.
We just try to keep it real as well. We don't try to make it too complicated. What you see is what you get with us. We're the same online that we are not online. And, we realize how hard it is to make a change, and it's just step by step. You don't have to do what I did. Well, I didn't even really go the whole hog because I hadn't done everything, but it's just step by step by step. When you're at the supermarket, rather than buy that product, you buy that one. And it's just making simple swaps along the way.
Yeah, awesome. And I want to mention as well that I didn't have you guys on here because I wanted to advertise what you guys do. I had you guys on here because this message needs to get out to the world, and I just believe so hard in what you guys are doing. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing and getting this message out there. I think you guys are making the world a better place.
Thanks.
No, really, I do mean that. And thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for having us on here.